Hi, I'm Mike Haduck, and I've been getting a lot of requests and a lot of emails and phone calls asking me the same questions. And it's usually from beginners, and they don't really know how to approach a project. So if you never worked with cement your whole life, you never picked up a block or a brick or a piece of stone, this video might help you. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out looking at the cement. Now the first thing, if you're a beginner, I suggest you go to a supply company and you get a bag of Mason Mix Type S mortar. And you can see right down here that it is good for block, for brick, for stone, construction and tuck pointing, and I use it for stucco and stick-on stone. It's good for almost everything. And what it is it's pre-mixed. I put a piece of tape over it because I'm not advertising here. But when you go to the store, make sure you push it and it's soft. If it's hard, don't buy it. So that's the first tip. Now I got some used brick here, right here. I have stone, some pieces of block. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this cement right here. We're going to open it up. The reason I picked it is because it's already pre-mixed. That means we don't have to add sand or cement to it. We get it in here. I got a little cheap trowel, and we add water to it, and we mix it up. When we mix the cement, the first thing that happens anytime you're working for a construction company is you have to learn to mix the cement. Because there's only two things that's going on. It's either cement or the product, like the block or the brick. So I got it mixed up to where I want it to be. And it's a pretty good consistency. So you take your trowel and you go like this, and it sticks on the trowel. You see that? That's good for brick or block. So once you get it all where you want it, let's just say you got to fix a brick. Well, if I have to fix a brick, the first thing I do, if I'm fixing it, is I wet it. I get the sponge and I wet it. I get the other brick and I get the sponge and I wet it. And what we're doing is we're practicing here. And we're putting this cement right on the brick. We got that wet part there and we're putting it together. You see? And we're shaking it a little bit so it stays together. And we're going to leave it just like that. The next thing, let's just say you want a little plaster. Or you're going to stucco this thing. Same thing. Here's what I do. I always wet it first. Now another little trick I do is I put a little bit in a can. And I put a little bit of water in it. And I mix it up into almost a paint. And what that is like a bonding agent. I don't buy bonding agents. I have nothing against them, but I know if I paint this, or you're painting a stone, or you're doing patchwork or something, and you paint it with this stuff first, you know that stuff is getting into them pores, and that's going to stick. Now we know that this cement right here is a little bit too hard for that, so we're going to put a little water in it, you see? And then you get your plaster, your cement, and you go right over it. Just like that. No big deal. If I could do it, anybody could do it. So that's our next example. And we're going to let that sit for a while. Now right here, let's say you're going to fix a couple stones. Stones are always dusty. I always do the same thing. I wet them first. Get all the standing water off of them. Right? Parts I get it to. Now I'll do this for an example, but this is a little bit too soft for stones. You know what I'm going to do? Going to get a little bit more. Add it in, just like that. And I'm going to make it harder. You see how I made that harder? Now that's ready to use for stone. Now if you're not good with a trowel, I suggest that you go get some rubber gloves. Alright? Now, usually when you're working with stone like you see, put the stone on top, just like you're playing with Play-Doh, and you put your rock on top. What we're doing here is we're practicing. Because the first problem and the first mistake that beginners make is they go right to the project they're going to fix and they slop it up. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Anytime you're going to do a project for yourself, go to the side of the building or a certain side that no one's going to see and practice. So now we're going to let this dry for a while and we're going to come back and look at it. Now let's just say this is about a little bit soft to the touch. So now we get our sponge, we wring it out, and we can kind of sponge it. You see, we get that sand finished. Now let's just say we want to stucco it. Like I said, we got to add a little more to the cement. We got to make it wet, like this. We soup it up again. I don't like to keep mixing the cement. After about an hour, I'll get rid of this and I'll mix some new stuff. Depending on how warm it is outside or whatever. But this is just for an example. This is to give you an idea of what's going on. And I get my stucco brush and I stuck it in the wet stuff like this. And I stucco it. See that? You can leave it like that or you can flatten it out too. That's how you do stucco. Now, I'm going to let that sit, and we're going to go back over here. Now there's our stone. You see our stone? This is what I use for stone, and you can see it in all my videos. Just make sure you clean it up real good, and then you kind of sponge it off. You see that? And that's what cleans that. If you're working with the brick, see we have the brick here? See, you could actually do this. Just get the end of the paintbrush. This is dry already because these bricks were dry. And they could do that and get it off. Now, if you don't get it to where you want to get it, and you're fixing something, just get the sponge. Make sure the sponge is real clean. And go over it. There, your brick is fixed. Nothing to it. Now let's say we're going to do some stick-on stone. Same thing. I always wet it first. If you're in doubt and you want to make sure it sticks, do what I told you. Put a little cement in there. That's like a binder. That'll really, really make it stick. And then get your, and you can put it on the back of your stone if you want to, see? That really gets into the pores. Then you get your cement, you put it on, you get your cement in the back, and you put it on. Just like that. Stick it on. You see that? Just kind of jiggle it in there. And that's that. All done. We'll check that a little later on. Now, let's just say you're going to do a patio thing. I made this little form. I'm just going to put this down so it don't stick to the plywood. I'm going to put it like that. And I'm going to take my cement. I'm going to shove it in there, just like that. Matter of fact, I think it's a little bit stiff. I'm going to soup it up a little again. Put it in like that, you see? Get it in there, just like that. No big deal. Get it in. Now right here I got a stone, a piece of flagstone. So I'm going to put that in here. Now, I'm using the same cement, if you noticed, on every thing, and that's okay. When I make something flat, I'm not a big fan of this kind of cement, but I think it's acceptable. And if you're only patching something or practicing, it's good. But what I usually use is straight Portland cement, 2 sand to 1 Portland. And you can look at my other videos. What cement should I use? That'll explain a little bit more about it. So alright, now we're going to put this in here. Of course, we're just playing around here for an example. Right? And that's it. We're going to let this sit for a while. I'm going to come back and look at it. Now if you want to get fancy, right, and you want to make like little sidewalk things, this is that's a concrete edger. You can get it at any kind of store. We're going to make it like a little edge to go around. That's kind of putting the cement where we want it to be. Now we're going to let this sit for a while, and we're going to look at this. So it's about 2 hours later, and we're checking out, see how dirty it is. Now always get our sponge, we wring it completely out, like that, and we go over the sides where the cement touched. That's going to clean that stone up for us. And tomorrow when we come back, we're going to check it out, see if we got to clean it anymore. Now this is starting to get hard right now. And the same thing, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to take my little edger, I call it, and go over this again. Kind of make it a little better. And then I'm going to get my sponge like this and wring it out too. I'm going to go over the stone. You see how I'm going around the sides? I'm going to clean that stone without trying to damage the rest of the cement. That's what I'm going to try to do. Just like that. And then I'm just going to sand face this. This is just if you were forming something. You see I'm sand facing it? If you're making patio blocks or anything like that. And that's it. That's pretty much done. And maybe I'll come down in an hour or two and check it out and see if I got any film. So we're going to check it early in the morning and see what it looks like before we go any farther. This is just being done for an example. Well, we're done with our cement, so I'm just going to do this to it. Get a little electrical tape, go around it, and I'm going to put it in a plastic bag. Because cement gets hard if you don't put it in a plastic bag, and it'll be hard in a couple weeks. So that's what we're going to do. That's going to keep the moisture out of this. Well, this is early the next morning, and it's still green, what I call it, which means it's still the cement's still wet. It takes cement actually almost a month to really fully cure. Usually they recommend a couple days before you even take the forms off. Depends on what you're doing. But it looks pretty clean to me. But if it isn't clean, what I do is I get a scrub brush like this, and I scrub it the next morning. And that'll take all that film off. Like that. That makes the getting down to the natural part of the stone. The same with this part down here. I scrub it out. And if I have a bad spot, I get the steel brush and I go over it with the steel brush. If you do that the next day, you can clean your stones really good. You usually don't have a problem. And it's still soft. Like I took the forms around here. You could kind of see how soft it is yet. Now you wait 3-4 days, you won't be able to do that. Now we got our rock over here. And see, it's stuck. Same thing. We wanted to clean that. We get the scrub brush and we clean it. It doesn't come off good enough. We use the wire brush, and that usually cleans it. You could use acids and everything. I'm not a fan of that. The same thing with the brick. What you do is you get the scrub brush and you clean it. Now if you practice doing this stuff, you're not going to have any problem. I can't see it. Of course, my way is different than everybody else's way. There's no right or wrong way. And if you're in doubt, ask the local guys the way they do it, because I do it different than a guy that would do it in Florida, and he'd do it different than a guy do it in California. They do it different than a guy that does it in Spain. So I hope you got something out of the video. These are all the techniques I basically use to do masonry work. And our stucco, see, it's still wet, and you can actually scrape it. See it? You can still scrape that. But I'm going to tell you what, you wait a week or two and you won't be able to do that. It'll be a lot harder. See, here's the stucco piece that we did. You see, it's about 7 days later. See how much harder it got? How hard it is? Cement is a time thing. You got to remember that. This cement is pretty good for certain things. If you look at my other videos, you're going to see what cement I usually prefer to use at certain jobs. I hope you got something out of that, and we'll see you next time. And remember, practice, practice, practice.